On a cold, rainy night, a black single mother had just finished her final cleaning shift and rushed to catch the last bus home so she could get back to her daughter who suffered from asthma. But just as the bus arrived, she noticed a well-dressed man in an expensive suit staggering across the street before suddenly collapsing to the ground. Everyone around saw it happen, yet no one stopped to help. After a few seconds of inner struggle, the single mother chose to give up the last bus home, ran across the street, and knelt in the rain to help a stranger, even though her daughter was waiting for her. What she didn't know was that this single choice would push her life in a direction no one could have imagined. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights in the Parker and Ross building buzzed the same way they had for the past 3 years. Naomi Brooks pushed her cleaning cart down the empty hallway on the 14th floor, her shoulders aching in that familiar way that told her she'd been working for 11 hours straight. The chemical smell clung to her hands even through the worn gloves. She'd scrubbed bathroom tiles, wiped down conference tables, vacuumed endless carpets. Her fingers felt numb now, like they didn't quite belong to her anymore. Whether from the cold or the chemicals, she couldn't tell. Probably both. She grabbed the mop and started on the last stretch of marble floor. Back and forth. Steady strokes. Her lower back throbbed with each movement, a dull ache that had become so constant she barely noticed it anymore. Her shoulders felt like someone had hung stones from them. "Just finish this floor," she muttered to herself. "Then you can go home." Home. The word sat heavy in her chest. She checked her phone. 11:23 p.m. No messages. Thank God. No messages meant Lily was okay. Meant her daughter's asthma hadn't flared up tonight. Meant Mrs. Chen next door hadn't needed to call. Naomi let out a breath and tucked the phone back into her pocket. She couldn't afford to think about what-ifs. Not tonight. Not when she still had work to finish. The mop squeaked across the floor. Slosh, push, squeeze. The rhythm was automatic now. She'd done the same floor hundreds of times. Same tiles, same water stains near the elevator, same scuff marks that never quite came clean, no matter how hard she scrubbed. Her mind wandered to the numbers. It always came back to the numbers. Rent due in 5 days. $470. The electric bill she hadn't opened yet because looking at it wouldn't change anything. Groceries. Maybe $80 if she stretched it. Lily's school lunch account was running low again. And the inhaler. Naomi's hand went to her bag automatically, fingers finding the familiar shape through the canvas. She pulled it out, turned it over in her palm. The label was peeling at the edges. The plastic felt too light when she shook it. 3 doses, maybe 4. She stared at it, doing the math in her head. The pharmacy wanted $65 for a refill. $65 she didn't have. Not until next Friday, and that was only if she didn't miss any shifts. Don't think about it now. She shoved the inhaler back into her bag. Just get through tonight. She emptied the bucket in the janitor's closet, stripped off her gloves, and grabbed her jacket from the locker. The thin fabric felt damp in her hands. It wasn't warm enough for January, but it was what she had. She checked her phone one more time. Still no messages. Still okay. Lily's fine. Mrs. Chen would have called if something was wrong. The words came out as a whisper, a prayer to nobody in particular. Outside, rain was falling. Not the gentle kind. The harsh, cold January rain that soaked through clothes and made you feel like you'd never be warm again. Naomi pulled her jacket tight and stepped out into the night. The streets were empty. Most people were home by now, asleep in warm beds, not wondering if their kid would wake up gasping for air in the middle of the night, not counting pennies to make rent, not working until midnight just to keep the lights on. Naomi walked fast, her worn sneakers splashing through puddles. 4 blocks to the bus stop. If she made the 11:47, she'd be home by 12:15. If she missed it, she'd be walking 2 miles in the rain, getting home after 1 in the morning, getting maybe 4 hours of sleep before Lily woke up for school. She couldn't miss it. The cold bit through her jacket. Rain plastered her hair to her forehead. She wiped it away and kept walking faster, now her legs protesting with each step. Come on, just 4 more blocks. Her breath came out in visible puffs. Her hands were already numb, shoved deep in her jacket pockets. She could feel the ache in her bones, the kind of tired that sleep didn't fix anymore. She turned onto Madison Street and the bus stop came into view. A small shelter with flickering overhead lights. The digital sign glowed in the dark 11:47 p.m. Last bus arriving. Something loosened in her chest. She was going to make it. Then she noticed him. A man stood under the shelter across the street. Even from a distance, Naomi could tell his suit was expensive, the kind that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. But it was soaked through, hanging heavy and dark on his frame. His collar was open, no tie. He stood perfectly still, staring at nothing in particular. Something about the way he stood made Naomi uneasy. Not the stillness of someone waiting patiently. Something else. Something wrong. She looked away. Not her business. She stepped under the shelter on her side of the street, shaking rain from her jacket. The metal roof provided some relief from the downpour. She checked the digital sign again. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. You can do 2 minutes. She rubbed her hands together, trying to get feeling back into her fingers. They were stiff and cold, the skin on her knuckles cracked and dry from the cleaning chemicals. She'd need to put lotion on them when she got home, if she remembered, if she wasn't too exhausted to care. Across the street, the man shifted slightly. Something about the movement caught her eye. He raised one hand to his temple, slow and uncertain. His other hand reached out, grasping at nothing. His knees buckled slightly, and he caught himself against the shelter wall. Naomi's stomach tightened. She watched him lean against the wall, his breathing visible in the cold air. Heavy, labored. Should I? She stopped herself. No, not my business. But she couldn't look away. The man pushed off from the wall, taking an unsteady step forward, then another. His movements were wrong, disconnected, like his body wasn't responding to what his brain was telling it to do. He stumbled. Time seemed to slow down. His hand shot out, trying to catch himself on something that wasn't there. His body tilted too far. His knees gave out completely. He went down hard. The sound of his body hitting the concrete cut through the rain. Sharp, hollow, final. Naomi's heart slammed against her ribs. Oh, God. She stood frozen, her hand gripping the strap of her bag. Across the street, the man lay motionless on the wet concrete. His shoulder had hit first, then his head. He wasn't moving. Around the bus stop, maybe 5 or 6 other people had seen it happen. Naomi watched them all do the same thing. Look up. Register what happened. Look away. A guy in a hoodie pulled out his phone and suddenly became very interested in his screen. A woman in a business suit took 3 deliberate steps backward, putting more distance between herself and the fallen man. An older couple turned completely around, facing the opposite direction. Nobody moved toward him. Nobody said anything. Naomi's breath came faster. Her fingers tightened on her bag strap until her knuckles turned white. The digital sign blinked. 11:46 p.m. 1 minute. She looked at the man on the ground, still not moving. She looked at the sign. Last bus arriving. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She grabbed it with trembling hands. A text from Mrs. Chen lit up the screen. Lily's sleeping. All good here. Thank God. The words came out shaky. Thank God, thank God. She stared at the message, at the photo of Lily that was her phone's wallpaper. Her daughter's face, smiling, missing a front tooth. Taken 6 months ago, before the asthma got worse. Before the medical bills started piling up. Before everything got so much harder. Naomi looked up at the bus sign. 30 seconds. She looked across the street at the man lying in the rain. Someone else will help him, she whispered. Someone else will call 911. But nobody was moving. Nobody was calling. Everyone was looking everywhere except at the man who might be dying on the sidewalk. Naomi's heart pounded in her ears, louder than the rain, louder than the approaching rumble of the bus engine in the distance. I have a daughter waiting at home. Her voice cracked. I have to get home. The man on the ground made a small sound, barely audible, but she heard it. Her feet moved before she made the decision. 1 step, 2, 3. She was crossing the street, rain soaking through her jacket, her worn sneakers splashing through puddles. The bus was turning the corner now. She could see its headlights cutting through the rain, but she kept walking toward the man on the ground. What are you doing? She muttered to herself. What the hell are you doing, Naomi? She didn't have an answer. She just knew she couldn't leave him there. The Last Bus Home. Part 2. A man with no one left beside him. 3 hours earlier, Richard Caldwell had stood in the grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel, a champagne flute in his hand he had no intention of drinking. The charity gala was exactly what he'd expected. Women in designer gowns, men in tailored suits, everyone smiling, everyone performing. "Mr. Caldwell, your generosity tonight will change so many lives." He'd nodded, smiled the smile they expected, written the check they wanted, $50,000 to a cause he didn't believe in, given to people who'd forget his name the moment he walked out the door. "It's all a stage," he'd muttered to himself, setting down the untouched champagne. A stage for fake compassion. The woman next to him had laughed at something he didn't hear. He'd excused himself and left without saying goodbye. Nobody noticed, or if they did, nobody cared enough to stop him. That's how Richard preferred it now. He'd walked back to his office after the gala, even though it was nearly 9 p.m. The building was mostly empty, just security and a cleaning crew working the upper floors. He'd sat at his desk and pulled up the termination letters his assistant had prepared. 3 names. 3 people who used to call him by his first name, who used to laugh at his jokes, who used to say they valued loyalty above everything. Until they didn't. Richard had signed each letter without hesitation. His hand didn't shake. His conscience didn't bother him. He'd learned that lesson already. Trust people and they take everything. Show them kindness and they see weakness. Better to cut them loose before they do it to you, he'd said to the empty office. He'd left the letters on his assistant's desk and taken the elevator down. The night air had been cold when he stepped outside. His driver had the night off. Richard had sent him home hours ago. He didn't want company, didn't want small talk, didn't want someone asking if he was all right when the answer didn't matter. He'd started walking. No destination in mind. Just away from the hotel, away from the office, away from the carefully constructed life that felt more like a prison every day. The rain started somewhere around 5th and Madison, light at first, then heavier. His vest soaked through quickly, the expensive fabric clinging to his shoulders. He should have called for a car, should have ducked into a coffee shop, should have done a lot of things, but he kept walking. Somewhere along the way, his thoughts drifted back, always back, to the signature he'd written years ago. Not on a termination letter, not on a business contract prepared by lawyers, on a handwritten agreement, late at night, in someone's kitchen, with a person he'd called his closest friend. "You can trust me, Richard. I'd never do this to you." He'd believed it. God help him, he'd believed every word. The memory tasted bitter even now. The way his friend had smiled while signing, the way they'd shaken hands, the way Richard had felt something like hope, thinking that not everything in the world had to be a transaction. 6 months later, his company nearly collapsed, his reputation shredded, his bank accounts drained, all because of that handwritten signature, that moment of trust. "You should have known better, Richard. Nothing's free." Those had been the last words his former friend said to him right before disappearing with everything Richard had given him access to. Richard had rebuilt, made his money back, made more than before, but something inside him had stayed broken. The part that believed people could be good without an angle. The part that thought kindness existed without a price tag. Now he knew better. People gave because they wanted something. They smiled because it benefited them. They stayed close because you had something they needed. Remove the money. Remove the status. Remove the usefulness, and watch how fast they disappeared. "At least here, no one pretends," he muttered. He'd found himself at a bus stop without planning it. The shelter on Madison Street, a place where nobody knew his name. Nobody wanted anything from him. Nobody performed compassion for an audience. Just strangers waiting for a bus, too tired or too broke to care about anyone else. It felt honest in a way his entire life wasn't. Richard leaned against the shelter wall, rain dripping from his hair down his collar. The cold seeped into his bones, but he didn't move. Across the street, he noticed a woman in a thin jacket hurrying toward the opposite shelter. A cleaning worker, probably, finishing a late shift, just trying to get home. She looked exhausted in a way Richard recognized. Not the exhaustion that came from a hard day's work, the kind that came from carrying weight that never got lighter. He looked away. Not his concern. His head felt strange, light, disconnected. He pressed his hand to his temple, trying to focus. When had he eaten last breakfast, maybe? Or was that yesterday the days blurred together lately? Meetings, signatures, decisions that affected hundreds of people and somehow meant nothing at all. "Should have eaten something," he mumbled. The dizziness got worse. The shelter started to tilt slightly, or maybe that was him. His hand reached out for the wall fingers sliding on the wet surface. His knees felt weak, unreliable. Just need to sit down. But his legs weren't listening anymore. The world tilted further. His hand grasped at nothing. His body lost the fight with gravity. He felt himself falling, but couldn't stop it, couldn't catch himself, couldn't do anything but let it happen. The concrete came up fast. His shoulder hit first. Pain shot through his arm. Then his head connected with the ground, and everything went white for a second, bright and sharp, and then dark. Sounds came back slowly. Rain on pavement, distant traffic, his own breathing shallow and fast. He tried to move, couldn't. His body felt like it belonged to someone else. Heavy, unresponsive. "Help!" The word came out as barely a whisper, too quiet for anyone to hear over the rain. Through blurred vision, Richard saw people at the bus stop, 5 or 6 of them, all looking in his direction. He tried to lift his hand, tried to call out again. Nobody moved. One by one, they turned away. A man pulled out his phone, suddenly fascinated by the screen. A woman in a suit stepped backward, putting distance between them. An elderly couple turned completely around. Richard's chest tightened, not from physical pain, from something worse. He was lying on the ground, possibly dying, and nobody cared enough to take 3 steps toward him. Of course they don't, he thought. Why would they? I'm nothing to them. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent years believing people only helped when there was something in it for them. Years convinced that compassion was just another form of currency. And here he was proving himself right. Nobody moved because helping him had no benefit, no reward, no angle. He closed his eyes. The rain felt colder now. Or maybe that was his body shutting down. Hard to tell. This is what you wanted, Richard. A place where no one pretends. He'd gotten exactly that. The dizziness pulled him under. Consciousness slipping away like water through fingers. He could hear the bus approaching, the hiss of air brakes, doors opening. People were leaving, getting on with their lives, going home to whatever waited for them there. And Richard was alone on the cold concrete, exactly like he'd expected to be. Then he heard footsteps, quick, splashing through puddles, getting closer. He forced his eyes open. Through the rain and the blur, he saw someone kneeling beside him. A woman. The one from across the street. The tired one in the thin jacket. She'd crossed over to him. While everyone else walked away, she'd come closer. Her hand touched his neck, checking for something. Her face was close enough that he could see the worry in her eyes. Real worry, not performed for an audience. "Can you hear me?" Her voice cut through the fog in his head. Richard tried to answer. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The woman looked up, calling to the others. "Someone call 911 inches. Nobody responded. She looked back down at him. Her hand was on his shoulder now, warm despite the rain. Steady. "It's okay," she said, though everything about the situation said it wasn't. "Help is coming." Richard's hand reached up weakly, finding her sleeve. He needed her to understand, needed her to know that he could make this worth her time. "I can pay you." The words slurred together, hard to form. "Whatever it costs." She didn't respond, just looked at him with those tired, worried eyes. "My wallet's not here, but I'll pay. I will." His grip on her sleeve tightened. "Just don't leave." Somewhere behind her, he heard the bus. The last bus. The driver calling out. The woman looked up, looked at the bus, looked back down at him, and Richard saw it. The exact moment she made her choice. The moment she chose to stay. The last bus home. Part 3. The collapse among strangers. The sound of Richard's body hitting the concrete was worse, up close. Hollow. Final. Like something breaking that couldn't be put back together. Naomi's knees hit the wet pavement as she dropped down beside him. The cold seeped through her pants immediately, but she barely noticed. Her hands hovered over him, unsure where to touch, what to do. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. His eyes were closed. Rain pelted his face, running down his temples, pooling in the hollow of his throat. She pressed 2 fingers against his neck, like she'd seen in movies, feeling for a pulse. It was there. Faint. Too slow. "Thank God." The words came out as a breath. His skin felt wrong under her fingers, cold in a way that had nothing to do with the rain. She pulled her hand back instinctively, then forced herself to touch him again. His shoulder, his arm. Checking for broken bones she wouldn't know how to identify anyway. She looked up at the other people at the bus stop. 6 faces staring at phones at the ground, at anywhere except where she knelt in the rain. "Someone call 911 inches. Her voice cracked. "Please." The guy in the hoodie kept scrolling through his phone. The woman in the business suit checked her watch like she was timing how long this inconvenience would last. The elderly couple had turned completely around now, backs to the entire scene. "Are you kidding me?" Naomi's hands were shaking. "He needs help." Nobody moved. Nobody even acknowledged she'd spoken. Behind her, the bus rounded the corner. Headlights swept across the street, momentarily illuminating everything. The fallen man, the indifferent crowd, Naomi kneeling in a puddle with rain soaking through her jacket. The air brakes hissed as the bus pulled up to the stop. Richard's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, struggling to see. His chest rose and fell in shallow, rapid breaths. His lips were pale, almost blue in the harsh streetlight. "Stay with me." Naomi leaned closer. "What's your name?" His mouth moved. No sound came out at first, then barely audible. "Richard." "Okay, Richard. I'm Naomi. Help is coming. You understand. You just need to stay awake." His hand shot up suddenly, grabbing her sleeve with surprising strength. His eyes locked onto hers wide with something that looked like panic. "I can pay you." The words came out slurred, desperate. "Whatever it costs." Naomi's stomach twisted. My wallet's not here, but I'll pay. I will." His grip tightened on her sleeve, fingers digging into the thin fabric. "I can pay. Just tell me how much." She stared at him, at the fear in his eyes that had nothing to do with physical pain, the fear of being left alone, of not being worth staying for. "Last bus," the driver's voice carried across the rain. "Anyone getting on?" Naomi's head snapped up. The bus sat at the stop across the street, engine idling, door open, warm light spilling out onto the wet pavement. She could see empty seats inside, could see the route number displayed above the windshield, the number that went to her neighborhood, to Lily. Her hand went to her pocket, feeling the shape of her phone. The message from Mrs. Chen still glowing on the screen. "Lily's sleeping. All good here. I have to go." The words caught in her throat. "I have to." Richard's hand on her sleeve trembled. His breathing was getting worse, faster, more labored. His eyes started to lose focus again. "No, no, no, stay awake." Naomi grabbed his hand without thinking. "Look at me, Richard. Eyes on me." "Miss." The bus driver leaned out. "You coming or not?" Around her, people started boarding. One by one. The guy in the hoodie, the businesswoman, the elderly couple. Everyone who'd been standing around doing nothing was suddenly in a hurry to leave. Naomi watched them file onto the bus, watched them take their seats, watched them settle in for the ride home to their warm houses, their families, their lives that didn't include a stranger dying on a sidewalk. Richard's hand was so cold in hers, colder than the rain, colder than the pavement, like his body was already giving up. "Don't leave," he whispered. "Please, I'll pay anything." Something in Naomi's chest cracked, not from his words, from the fact that those were his words, that even now, even like this, he thought money was the only reason anyone would stay. "Miss." The bus driver's patience was wearing thin. "Last call." Naomi looked at the bus, at the door that would close in seconds, at her only way home, at 4 hours of sleep instead of 2, at being there when Lily woke up, at keeping her job, at making rent, at all the things that would fall apart if she missed this bus. She looked down at Richard, at his pale face, at the way his chest struggled with each breath, at the rain washing over him like the world was trying to erase him. When she touched his hand earlier, it had felt colder than the rain, like ice that had forgotten what warmth was. She thought about Lily, about the question her daughter had asked her last week. "Mom, why do people walk past homeless people without looking?" Naomi had said something about people being busy, about them having their own problems, about how life was hard for everyone. But Lily had looked at her with those big, serious eyes and said, "But we always look. Even when we can't help, we always look. That's important, right?" The bus door started to close. "Wait." Naomi's voice rang out. She stood up, took one step toward the bus. The door stopped, reopened. The driver looked at her expectantly. Naomi's foot touched the first step. Warm air from inside the bus washed over her face. She could see the seats, the people settling in, the route map above the driver's head. One more step and she'd be on. One more step and she could go home. Behind her, Richard made a sound, small, broken. Naomi closed her eyes, saw Lily's face, heard her daughter's voice. "That's important, right?" She stepped back down. "I can't get on." The words came out quiet but certain. "Final." The driver stared at her. "You're kidding." "I'm sorry." She wasn't sure why she was apologizing. "I can't. Lady, this is the last bus tonight." "I know." Her voice didn't shake. "I know it is." The driver shook his head, muttered something she couldn't hear, and closed the door. The bus pulled away from the curb. Red taillights disappeared around the corner, taking with them her ride home, her sleep, her ability to make it to work tomorrow morning. Taking everything. The street fell silent except for the rain. Naomi stood there for a moment, watching the space where the bus had been. The finality of it settled over her like the cold. That was it. The last bus. No more were coming. She'd just thrown away her only chance. "What did I just do?" she whispered. Behind her, Richard was watching. She could feel his eyes on her back. When she turned around and knelt beside him again, she saw something in his face that hadn't been there before. Confusion. Disbelief. Like he was looking at something that shouldn't exist. "You." His voice was barely audible. "You stayed." Naomi pulled out her phone, hand shaking as she dialed 911. "Yeah, well, I'm probably going to regret it." But even as she said it, even as she pressed the phone to her ear and heard it ring, she knew that wasn't true. She wouldn't regret staying. She'd regret everything that came after. But not this moment, not this choice. 911. What's your emergency? Naomi looked down at Richard, at the stranger she'd just sacrificed everything for, and started talking. The last bus home. Part 4. When opportunity closes. The 911 operator's voice was calm, methodical, asking questions Naomi answered on autopilot. "There's a man who collapsed at the bus stop, corner of Madison and 5th. Is he breathing?" "Yes, but barely. And he's so cold." "Is he conscious?" Naomi looked down at Richard. His eyes were open, fixed on her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "Yes, he's awake. Help is on the way. Stay with him. Keep him talking if you can." The call ended. Naomi shoved the phone back in her pocket and realized she was shivering. The rain had soaked completely through her jacket now. Her pants were drenched from kneeling on the wet concrete. Her hands were numb. "They're coming," she said to Richard. "Ambulance should be here soon." He didn't respond, just kept staring at her with that same bewildered expression. "What's your full name?" She tried to remember what the operator had said about keeping him talking. "Richard what?" "Caldwell." His voice was stronger now. "Not much, but enough." "Richard Caldwell." "Okay, Richard Caldwell. Do you have any medical conditions I should tell them about?" "No." He paused. "Why did you do that?" "Do what?" "The bus. You let it leave." Naomi's jaw tightened. She didn't want to think about the bus, about what she'd just done, about the consequences that were already piling up in her head. "Don't worry about it. That was the last bus." His words were clearer now, more focused, like the shock of what she'd done was pulling him back to consciousness. "I heard the driver say it." "Yeah, well." She checked his pulse again just to have something to do with her hands. "Can't change it now." "Why would you—" He stopped wincing. His hand went to his head. "I don't understand." "You needed help. Nobody else was going to do it." The words came out sharper than she intended. "That's it. That's the whole story." But it wasn't. And they both knew it. In the distance, sirens started to wail. Faint at first, then growing louder. The ambulance was coming. Help was coming. She just had to keep him stable until then. "Talk to me," she said. "Stay awake." "What do you do for work?" "I run a company." He was still looking at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "Investment firm." "Okay, that's good. What kind of investments?" "The kind that make money." His eyes were clearer now, more alert. "The kind where people smile at you because of what you can give them." There was something bitter in his voice, something dark and familiar. Naomi had heard that tone before, from people who'd been disappointed too many times. "Sounds lonely," she said quietly. Richard's laugh was short, humorless. "It is." The sirens got closer. Naomi could see the flashing lights, now red and white, cutting through the rain. "They're almost here. You're going to be okay." "Am I?" He wasn't asking about his health. "I've spent years believing people only help when there's something in it for them. Years being proven right. And then you." He trailed off, shaking his head slightly. "I offered to pay you. I begged you to stay. And you didn't ask for anything." "I don't want your money," Naomi said flatly. "Then why?" The ambulance pulled up to the curb. Doors slammed. 2 paramedics jumped out, grabbing equipment from the back. Naomi stood up, stepping back to give them room. Her knees screamed in protest. Her whole body felt like it was made of ice. "Ma'am, were you with him when he collapsed?" One of the paramedics, a young guy with tired eyes, looked up at her. "Yes, I called it in." "Did he hit his head?" "Yeah, hard, on the concrete." They worked quickly, efficiently, checking vitals, asking Richard questions, preparing to move him. Naomi watched from a few feet away, arms wrapped around herself, trying to stop shivering. Now that the adrenaline was fading, the cold was setting in for real. Her teeth were chattering. Her fingers had gone from numb to painfully cold. "We're taking him to Mercy General," the paramedic said. "You riding with—" "No, I need to get home." It was a lie. She had no idea how she was getting home now. But she wasn't going to the hospital. She'd done what she could. That had to be enough. They loaded Richard onto a stretcher. As they lifted him into the ambulance, he turned his head, trying to find her in the rain. "Wait." His voice was weak but insistent. "Her name. Someone write down her name." "Sir, we need to go." "Her name," Richard insisted. "Naomi. Write it down." The paramedic glanced at Naomi. She stood there dripping and shivering, wishing she could just disappear. "Naomi what?" the paramedic asked. "Brooks," she said quietly. "Naomi Brooks." Richard's eyes found hers one last time. She saw something in them. Not gratitude, something deeper. Something that looked almost like recognition, like he'd seen something in her that he'd forgotten existed. Then the doors closed and the ambulance pulled away, sirens wailing. Naomi stood alone at the empty bus stop, rain drumming on the metal roof above her. The street was quiet again, like nothing had happened, like the last 20 minutes had been erased. She checked her phone. 12:14 a.m. The missed bus felt like a weight in her chest. She started walking, 2 miles home, in the rain, in the cold, her wet sneakers squished with every step. By the time she reached her apartment building, it was nearly 1 in the morning. Her whole body ached, her feet were blistered, her jacket was so soaked it had stopped feeling like clothing and started feeling like a punishment. She climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, knocked quietly on Mrs. Chen's door. The older woman opened it, eyes widening when she saw Naomi's state. "What happened to you?" "Long story. Is Lily okay?" "She's fine, sleeping. But Naomi, you look—" "I'm okay. Just missed the bus. Had to walk." Mrs. Chen studied her face, clearly not believing her, but didn't push. "I put her to bed at 9. She asked for water once around 10. That's it." "Thank you." "Really? I don't know what I'd do without you." "It's nothing. You know I love that girl." Naomi collected Lily from Mrs. Chen's couch, carrying her sleeping daughter up one more flight of stairs to their apartment. Lily didn't wake up, just nestled closer against Naomi's shoulder. Inside, Naomi laid Lily down in her bed. The nebulizer sat on the nightstand ready, if needed. Lily's breathing was even, steady, no wheezing. Thank God. Naomi's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting another bill notification. It was worse. An email from her supervisor, Naomi. "You were scheduled for tonight and didn't show. Company policy is clear. This is your termination notice. Your final check will be mailed." She read it twice, then 3 times. The words didn't change. She'd been fired. Of course she had. She'd abandoned her shift, left work early, violated company policy. Her hand shook as she lowered the phone. One choice, one moment of staying when she should have left. And now she had no job, no income, no way to pay rent that was due in 4 days. Naomi sat down on the edge of Lily's bed, watching her daughter sleep. The girl's face was peaceful, innocent, completely unaware that their world had just fallen apart. "What did I do?" Naomi whispered. "What did I just do?" But she knew. She'd chosen a stranger over her own daughter's security. She'd chosen one moment of compassion over weeks of stability, and now they'd both pay for it. The Last Bus Home, Part 5, The Price of Kindness. Naomi didn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table until dawn, staring at bills she couldn't pay, doing math that wouldn't work, no matter how many times she tried it. Rent $470, due in 4 days. Electric $89, overdue. Lily's inhaler refill $65. Groceries $80 if she stretched every dollar, total $704. Money in her account $243. Her final paycheck would be maybe $400, and that was 2 weeks away. Even with it, she'd come up short. Without her job, without any job, they wouldn't make it through the month. The apartment lease was month to month. Miss one payment, and they were out. She'd signed papers saying so, had read the terms carefully because she couldn't afford mistakes. "Okay," she spoke to the empty kitchen. "Okay, I can find another job. I can." Her phone buzzed. Another email. From their landlord this time. "Miss Brooks, rent is due in 4 days. Please note that per your lease agreement, late payment will result in immediate eviction proceedings. No exceptions." Naomi's hands clenched around the phone. The landlord had never been flexible, never accepted excuses, money on time, or you were out. That was the deal. She looked toward Lily's room, still sleeping. The girl had school in 2 hours. Naomi needed to wake her up, make breakfast, pack lunch, pretend everything was fine. How long could she keep pretending? At 7 a.m., Lily shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. Her breathing sounded clear. Good. That was something. Morning, baby. Morning. Lily climbed into her chair. Did you get home late? A little. Had to walk. Missed the bus. Lily frowned. That's a long walk. It's okay. I didn't mind. Lie. Every step had been torture. But Lily didn't need to know that. Naomi made eggs and toast using the last of the bread. She'd need to buy more today. Except she couldn't. Not until she figured out how to stretch $243 across the next 4 days. Mom. Lily was watching her with those 2 observant eyes. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetie. You look sad. Just tired. Naomi forced a smile. Eat your breakfast. We need to leave in 20 minutes. She got Lily ready for school, checked her backpack, made sure she had her emergency inhaler, walked her to the bus stop, and watched her climb aboard. Love you, Mom. Love you too, baby. The school bus pulled away. Naomi stood there until it was out of sight, then turned and started walking to the temp agency office downtown. Maybe they had something. Anything. She couldn't afford to be picky. 3 hours later, she walked out with nothing. No openings. Nothing that fit her schedule. Nothing that paid enough to matter. Check back next week, they'd said. Next week would be too late. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Miss Brooks. This is Mercy General Hospital. I'm calling about Lily Brooks. Naomi's heart stopped. What happened? She was brought in about 20 minutes ago. School called an ambulance. She's having an asthma attack. You need to come right away. The world tilted. I'm coming right now. She ran. 3 blocks to catch a bus. 12 stops to the hospital. Every second felt like drowning. Her phone kept ringing. Mrs. Chen. The school. Numbers she didn't recognize. She ignored them all. Finally, the hospital. She burst through the emergency room doors. My daughter. Lily Brooks. Where is she? The nurse checked the computer. Room 4. Through those doors. Naomi ran again. Down hallways that smelled like disinfectant and fear. Room 4. She pushed through the door. Lily was in the bed, oxygen mask over her face. The nebulizer ran beside her, pumping medication into her lungs. Her eyes were wide, scared. Mom, I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Naomi grabbed her hand. You're okay. You're going to be okay. A doctor came in, young, efficient, already moving to the next crisis in her head. Miss Brooks, I'm Dr. Martinez. Lily had a severe asthma attack. We've stabilized her, but she needs to stay for observation, at least overnight. Okay, whatever she needs. There's also the matter of payment. Do you have insurance? Naomi's stomach dropped. My job. I just lost my job. The insurance was through them. I think it's still active for another month. Dr. Martinez's expression didn't change. Still professional. Still detached. I'll have billing check. In the meantime, we'll need a deposit for the overnight stay. $500. $500. Naomi had $243 to her name. I don't have that right now, but I can pay. I just need a few days. Hospital policy requires a deposit before admission. She's already admitted. She's in the bed right now. Yes, well, Dr. Martinez's voice was careful, clinical. If you can't provide the deposit, we'll have to discharge her once she's stabilized. Discharge her, she needs to stay overnight. You just said that. I understand this is difficult. No. Naomi's voice rose. No, you don't understand. She could die. Do you understand that she could stop breathing? Lily squeezed her hand. Mom, don't yell. Naomi looked down at her daughter, at the oxygen mask, at the fear in her eyes that had nothing to do with breathing and everything to do with seeing her mother fall apart. She took a breath, forced herself to speak calmly. Please, I'll sign whatever you need. I'll pay whatever it costs. Just don't make her leave. Dr. Martinez glanced at Lily, then back at Naomi. Something in her expression softened slightly. Let me talk to administration. Wait here. She left. Naomi sank into the chair beside Lily's bed, still holding her daughter's hand. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Lily pulled the oxygen mask down slightly. It's not your fault. Yes, it is. Naomi's voice cracked. I should have been there. Should have had the inhaler refilled. Should have... Mom. Lily's voice was small but firm. You can't be everywhere. I'm your mother. I'm supposed to protect you. You do protect me. Every day. The certainty in her daughter's voice broke something in Naomi. She put her head down on the bed and let herself cry. Quietly. so Lily wouldn't worry more than she already was. After a few minutes, Dr. Martinez returned with another woman, older, carrying a clipboard. "Miss Brooks, this is Patricia from billing. She's going to work out a payment plan with you." Patricia sat down all business. "We can admit Lily tonight if you sign a payment agreement. The total estimated cost will be around $3,000 for overnight observation and treatment. $3,000. Naomi felt like she was drowning. "We'll set up monthly payments, $250 a month for 12 months. She couldn't afford $250 a month. She couldn't afford $50 a month. She couldn't afford anything because she didn't have a job. But she took the pen, signed the papers, agreed to debt she had no idea how to pay. Because what else could she do? When they left, Naomi pulled her chair closer to Lily's bed. Her daughter was already dozing off the medication and oxygen doing their work. The hospital hallway hummed with activity outside. Doctors making rounds, nurses checking charts, the normal rhythm of a place where people fought to stay alive. Naomi pulled out her phone, checked her bank account again like the number might have changed. $243. She closed her eyes, thought about the man at the bus stop, Richard Caldwell, the one she'd stayed for, the one who'd cost her everything. She wondered if he was somewhere in this same hospital, wondered if he was okay, wondered if he even remembered her name. Wondered if one moment of kindness was worth losing everything else. The Last Bus Home. Part 6. When kindness is questioned. Naomi dozed in the chair beside Lily's bed, her neck cramped at an awkward angle. She jerked awake every time a nurse came in to check vitals, every time the machines beeped, every time Lily stirred. Around noon, Lily woke up properly. The oxygen mask was off now, just a nasal cannula. Her breathing sounded better, steadier. "How do you feel?" Naomi smoothed hair back from her daughter's forehead. "Tired. My chest hurts a little." "That's normal. The doctor said you're doing much better." Lily nodded, then looked around the room. "Are we going home today?" "Tonight, probably. They want to watch you a little longer." "Did you call school?" "Yeah. They know you're here." "Will I miss a lot?" Only Lily would worry about schoolwork from a hospital bed. "Don't think about school right now. Just rest." A knock at the door. 2 police officers stood in the doorway, one older, one younger, both with notebooks in hand. Naomi's heart rate spiked. "Can I help you?" The older officer stepped forward. "Miss Brooks, Naomi Brooks." "Yes." "I'm Officer Stevens. This is Officer Park. We need to ask you some questions about an incident last night at the bus stop on Madison and 5th. Naomi's mouth went dry. "Okay. Can we speak privately?" "My daughter. Just in the hallway. It won't take long." Naomi looked at Lily, who was watching with wide eyes. "I'll be right back, baby. Don't worry." She followed the officers into the hallway. The fluorescent lights were too bright. Everything felt too bright, too sharp. Officer Stevens pulled out his notebook. "You were at the bus stop last night around 11:45 p.m. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Can you tell us what happened?" Naomi's hands were shaking. She clasped them together. "A man collapsed. I called 911. "Did you know this man?" "No, I'd never seen him before." "But you stayed with him. Missed your bus to stay with him." It wasn't a question, more like an accusation phrased politely. "Yes, he needed help." Officer Park spoke up. "Why didn't you get on the bus, miss?" "Brooks, I just told you. He needed help. Nobody else was doing anything. But you didn't know him, had no connection to him whatsoever. So what does that matter?" Officer Stevens exchanged a glance with his partner. "We're trying to establish the nature of your relationship with Mr. Caldwell." "There is no relationship. I was waiting for a bus. He collapsed. I helped. That's it." "Mr. Caldwell is a very wealthy man," Officer Park said carefully, "worth several $1,000,000. Naomi stared at him. And we're trying to understand why a complete stranger would give up her last bus home walk 2 miles in the rain to help someone she's never met." The implication hit her like a slap. "You think I was trying to get something from him? We're just asking questions. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know he had money. I just saw someone who needed help." Officer Stevens wrote something in his notebook. "Can you walk us through the events again from the moment you arrived at the bus stop?" Naomi repeated the story. Every detail. The rain. The way Richard had stumbled. The way nobody else moved. The choice she'd made. "Did Mr. Caldwell say anything to you?" Officer Park asked. "He said he'd pay me. He kept saying he'd pay whatever it cost." Both officers looked up sharply. He offered you money. He was barely conscious. He was scared. He just kept saying that over and over. Naomi's voice rose. I told him I didn't want his money. I told him I just didn't want him dying there. But you did stay. And now you're at the same hospital where he's being treated. My daughter is here because she has asthma. That has nothing to do with him. Officer Stevens closed his notebook. Mr. Caldwell is still unconscious. We can't verify your account until he wakes up. Verify my account like I'm lying. We're just being thorough, Miss Brooks. In cases like this, with someone of Mr. Caldwell's wealth and status, we have to investigate all possibilities. Possibilities of what? Of opportunistic behavior, of someone positioning themselves to claim they saved his life, then demanding compensation. Naomi laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Are you serious? I lost my job because of last night. I'm about to lose my apartment. My daughter is lying in a hospital bed, and I have no idea how I'm going to pay for any of this. But sure, I did it all for some rich guy's money that I didn't even know he had. The officers didn't respond, just watched her with those neutral cop expressions. Are we done here? Naomi asked. For now. We may have more questions once Mr. Caldwell wakes up. Great. You know where to find me. She turned and walked back into Lily's room, hands still shaking. The officers didn't follow. She heard their footsteps fade down the hallway. Lily was sitting up now, looking worried. Mom, what did they want? Nothing, baby. Just routine questions. Another lie. She was getting too good at those. Were you in trouble? No. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. She'd done the right thing. She'd helped someone who needed it. And now the police were treating her like a criminal. Like kindness itself was suspicious. Naomi sat back down in the chair, suddenly exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. Mom, Lily's voice was small. Did I scare you when I couldn't breathe? Naomi grabbed her daughter's hand. You didn't scare me, baby. I'm just glad you're okay. You can go to work if you need to. I can sleep. The words cut deeper than any police interrogation. Lily trying to be brave, trying not to be a burden. At 8 years old. I don't have work anymore, Naomi heard herself say. Lily's eyes widened. What? I missed my shift last night. They fired me. Because of me? No. Not because of you. Never because of you. Then why? Naomi hesitated. How did you explain to an 8-year-old that you'd chosen a stranger over your own stability, that you'd thrown away security for one moment of doing the right thing? Someone needed help, she said finally. And I stayed to help them. But it meant missing work. That's why. Lily processed this silently. Then, did the person die? No, I don't think so. Then it was worth it. Lily. Mom, you always tell me to help people. You say that's what matters. That's what you did right. Yes, but. Then it was the right thing, even if it was hard. Naomi looked at her daughter, at the certainty in her face. The absolute faith that doing good would somehow work out in the end. When had Naomi lost that faith? When had the world beaten it out of her? You're right, she said quietly. You're right, baby. But as she sat there holding Lily's hand, watching the monitors track her daughter's vital signs, Naomi couldn't help but wonder, what did it matter if you did the right thing? If the right thing destroyed you, the afternoon dragged on. Nurses came and went. Dr. Martinez checked in, said Lily could probably go home that evening if her breathing stayed stable. Around 4 p.m. there was another knock. Naomi tensed, expecting more police. Instead, it was a man in a suit, expensive looking, carrying a briefcase. Miss Brooks, I'm David Chen. I'm Mr. Caldwell's attorney. Of course. Now the lawyers were coming. What do you want? May I come in? Naomi glanced at Lily, who was watching with wide eyes. Fine, but make it quick. David Chen stepped inside, closing the door behind him. He didn't sit, just stood there, briefcase in hand, looking vaguely uncomfortable. I understand you helped my client last night. Is that what the police told you? Mr. Caldwell woke up this morning. He told us what happened. Naomi's heart skipped. He's awake. Yes, and he's been asking about you. Why? David Chen opened his briefcase, pulled out a folder. He wanted me to ensure you weren't inconvenienced by what happened last night. Naomi stared at the folder. What does that mean? It means Mr. Caldwell is grateful, and he'd like to help with any expenses you might have incurred. I don't want his money. Miss Brooks, I said I don't want his money. Her voice was sharp. I didn't help him, so he'd pay me. I'm not looking for a reward. David Chen looked genuinely confused. Then why did you help him? The question hung in the air. Why had she helped him? She'd asked herself that 100 times since last night, and she still didn't have a good answer. Because nobody else was going to, she said finally. That's it. That's the only reason. The lawyer studied her face. Mr. Caldwell would like to speak with you, if you're willing. I don't think that's a good idea. He's on the 5th floor, room 512. He asked me to tell you that. David Chen put the folder back in his briefcase. The offer stands, Miss Brooks, if you change your mind about the expenses. I won't. He nodded and left. Naomi sat back down, head spinning. Richard Caldwell was awake. He'd told the police what happened. He was sending his lawyer to pay her off. She should feel relieved. The police would stop questioning her. The story would be verified. Instead, she just felt tired. So tired. The Last Bus Home, Part 7. Shattered Belief. Richard Caldwell stared at the ceiling of his hospital room and tried to make sense of what had happened. The doctors said he'd collapsed from exhaustion, dehydration, and dangerously low blood sugar, a perfect storm of neglecting his body for too long. They wanted to keep him for observation, run more tests, lecture him about self-care. He didn't care about any of that. He cared about the woman who'd stayed. Naomi Brooks. He said the name out loud, testing how it felt. Strange. Unfamiliar. But somehow important. His attorney, David Chen, had just left after reporting that Naomi had refused any financial assistance. Refused it emphatically, apparently. Richard didn't understand. He'd spent the morning talking to the police, verifying her story. Yes, she'd helped him. No, he didn't know her. Yes, she'd given up her last bus home to stay with him. The officers had seemed skeptical until he confirmed every detail. Then they'd left probably disappointed they didn't have a crime to investigate. Richard reached for his phone. 17 missed calls, texts from board members, business partners, people checking if he was alive. Not because they cared about him, because his death would affect their portfolios. He ignored all of them. Instead, he pulled up his company's background check service. Typed in Naomi Brooks. The report came back in minutes. Single mother, age 33, no criminal record, employment history, various cleaning and service jobs. Current address, a low-income apartment building on the east side. No red flags, no suspicious connections, no reason to help a stranger except that she'd chosen to. Richard set down the phone. His mind kept going back to that moment. The rain, the cold, the feeling of his body failing him, and then her face looking down at him with genuine concern. I can pay you, he'd said, because that's what he always said, because money was the language he understood, and she'd said no. Not how much, not we'll discuss terms. Just no. He'd watched her let that bus drive away, had seen her make the choice in real time, had seen what it cost her written on her face in the rain. For him. A stranger. Richard's hand went to his temple, pressing against the dull ache there. The doctor said he'd hit his head pretty hard. Mild concussion. He should rest. But resting meant thinking. And thinking meant confronting things he'd successfully avoided for years, like the night James Torrance had sat across from him at a kitchen table, his oldest friend, the person he'd trusted more than anyone. You're really going to do this? James had asked. We've been planning it for months, Richard had replied. Why wouldn't I? Because most people would want lawyers involved, contracts, protection. I trust you. James had smiled. You shouldn't trust anyone, Richard, not in business. You're not just business, you're my friend. And James had signed the handwritten agreement right there in his kitchen. No lawyers, no witnesses, just 2 signatures on a piece of paper. 6 months later, Richard's company was hemorrhaging money. Investments he'd never approved, accounts drained, his reputation in shambles. And James gone, disappeared with millions. The police had found him eventually. But the money was gone, hidden in offshore accounts, shell companies, places Richard's lawyers couldn't touch. You should have known better, Richard. Nothing's free. Those had been James's last words before his arraignment, said with a smile, like he was teaching Richard a valuable lesson. And Richard had learned it, had internalized it so deeply that it became the lens through which he saw everything. People only gave because they wanted something back. Kindness was currency. Trust was weakness. Except Naomi Brooks had challenged every single one of those beliefs in 20 minutes at a bus stop. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Come in. A nurse entered, checking his IV adjusting machines. How are you feeling, Mr. Caldwell? Fine. Your blood sugar's looking better. We'll probably discharge you tomorrow if everything stays stable. Good. She finished her checks and left. Richard was alone again with his thoughts. He needed to talk to Naomi, needed to understand why she'd done it, needed some explanation that fit into his worldview of how people actually behaved, because if she'd really helped him for no reason, with no expectation of reward, then everything he'd built his life around for the past 5 years was wrong, and he didn't know how to live in a world where that was possible. He pressed the call button. A different nurse appeared. "Can I help you?" "There's a patient in this hospital, Lily Brooks. Can you tell me what room she's in?" The nurse frowned. "I'm not sure I can give out that information. Please, her mother is... I need to speak with her. It's important." Something in his voice must have convinced her. "Let me check." She left and returned a few minutes later. "Lily Brooks is in room 304, pediatric ward." "Thank you." After she left, Richard sat up slowly. His head spun for a moment, then cleared. The doctors had said he could walk around as long as he took it easy. He unplugged himself from the monitors, grabbed his IV pole, and headed for the door. The hallway was busy with the late afternoon shift change. Nurses hurrying past, doctors reviewing charts. Nobody paid attention to him. He found the elevator rode down 3 floors, followed the signs to pediatrics. Room 304 was at the end of the hall. Richard stood outside for a long moment, suddenly unsure. What was he going to say? What did he want from this conversation? Before he could decide, the door opened. Naomi stood there frozen. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Mr. Caldwell." "Miss Brooks." His voice came out rougher than intended. "I was hoping we could talk." She glanced back into the room where he could see a young girl in the bed, her daughter. Then back at him. "I don't think." "Please, just 5 minutes." She studied his face. Whatever she saw there made her sigh. "Fine, but not here." She stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind her. "My daughter doesn't need to hear this conversation." "Fair enough." They walked down the hallway to a small waiting area, empty except for outdated magazines and uncomfortable chairs. Naomi sat down, arms crossed defensively. Richard took the chair across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Richard said, "You stayed." "I know I did." "Why?" Naomi's laugh was short, bitter. "Everyone keeps asking me that. The police. Your lawyer. Now you. I offered to pay you. I begged you to stay. And you didn't ask for anything." "No, I didn't." "Most people would have taken the money. Hell, most people would have gotten on that bus and never looked back." "Yeah, well," Naomi's eyes were hard. "Maybe I'm not most people." "But why?" Richard leaned forward. "What did you get out of it? You lost your job. Your daughter's in the hospital. You're drowning in debt. All because you helped a stranger. You make it sound like I'm stupid. I'm trying to understand." Naomi was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was tired. "I don't want my daughter growing up in a world where people step over each other." The words hit Richard like a physical blow. "That's it. That's your reason." What other reason should there be? Richard sat back. His entire worldview was crumbling in real time. "People usually stay because they want something," he said slowly, like he was working through a difficult problem. "They help because there's an angle, a benefit, something they get out of it." He paused, meeting her eyes. "You didn't." "No, I didn't. You paid for it. You're still paying for it. And you did it anyway." "Yes." Richard felt something crack inside his chest. Not painful, but definite, like ice breaking. "I spent years thinking kindness was just another form of currency," he said quietly, "that people only gave because they wanted something back." He looked down at his hands. "Someone I trusted proved me right, took everything I gave him, and disappeared, left me with nothing but proof that I was right to never trust anyone again." Naomi didn't respond, just listened. "But you," Richard shook his head, "you reminded me of something I forgot, that not everything is a transaction." "That shouldn't be a revelation," Naomi said softly. "That should be normal." "It's not. Not in my world." "Then you're living in the wrong world." The words were simple, obvious, and completely devastating. Richard had spent 5 years building walls, protecting himself, proving that his cynicism was justified, and this exhausted single mother had just dismantled it all in one conversation. "I want to help," he said. Naomi tensed. "I told your lawyer." "I know what you told him, but I'm not offering charity. I'm offering restitution." "For what?" "For being wrong. For spending years believing that someone like you couldn't exist." He met her eyes. "You lost your job because of me. Your daughter's medical bills, the rent you can't pay. All of it happened because you chose to help me." "I chose it. That's on me." "Let me make it right. Not as repayment, but as..." He struggled for the word, as the person I should have stayed. Naomi stared at him. What does that mean? It means I used to believe what you believe, that people could be good without an angle. That kindness mattered. His voice dropped. You reminded me that I used to be someone better than who I became. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Naomi said, I didn't help you so you'd have an existential crisis. I know. That's exactly why it matters. She shook her head but didn't argue, just looked tired. So tired. My daughter needs me, she said, standing. I should get back. Richard stood too. Think about it, please. I'm not taking your money. Then don't take money, take a job. Let me help with the medical bills. Let me do something other than watch you drown because you chose to be a decent human being. Naomi's expression softened slightly. Why do you care so much? Because you're the first person in 5 years who didn't want anything from me, and that means more than you could possibly understand. She studied his face for a long moment. Then, without another word, she walked away. Richard watched her go, something settling in his chest. Not peace exactly, but something like purpose. He'd spent 5 years proving that kindness didn't exist without conditions. Now he had a chance to prove himself wrong. The Last Bus Home. Part 8. Gratitude is not a transaction. 2 days passed. Richard was discharged from the hospital with instructions to rest, eat properly, and stop treating his body like it was optional. He ignored most of it. Instead, he spent those 2 days making calls, not to board members or investors, to people he normally wouldn't bother with. Hospital administrators, police officers, employment agencies. By the 3rd day, he had what he needed. He returned to the hospital not as a patient, but as a visitor. Found his way to the pediatric ward, room 304. He knocked softly. Come in. Naomi was sitting in the same chair as before, though she looked slightly less exhausted. Her daughter was awake, coloring in a book laid across her lap. Both of them looked up when Richard entered. Mr. Caldwell. Naomi's voice was carefully neutral. Miss Brooks, I hope I'm not intruding. We're being discharged in an hour, so... She trailed off, not finishing the sentence. Richard turned to the girl in the bed. You must be Lily. The girl nodded shyly. Are you the man my mom helped? I am. Are you okay now? Something about her direct concern made Richard's throat tight. I'm much better, thanks to your mom. Lily smiled. She helps people. That's what she does. Naomi's expression flickered. Lily, let Mr. Caldwell and me talk for a minute, okay? Okay. Lily went back to coloring, apparently unconcerned. Naomi stood, gesturing for Richard to follow her into the hallway. When the door closed behind them, she crossed her arms. What are you doing here? I told you I wanted to help. And I told you. I know what you told me, but I'm not asking any more. Richard pulled out a folder from his briefcase. I've already taken care of the medical bills. Naomi's eyes widened. What? Lily's treatment, the overnight stay. All of it. I paid it this morning. You can't do that. I already did. It's done. Without my permission, you would have said no. Damn right I would have said no. Her voice rose, then immediately dropped when she remembered where they were. You can't make decisions like that. Someone had to. You were drowning. That's not your problem. It became my problem the moment you chose to stay with me instead of getting on that bus. Naomi opened her mouth closed. It opened it again. I didn't help you so you'd feel obligated. I know. That's exactly why I am obligated. She shook her head, turning away slightly. This is too much. I can't accept this. You already have. It's paid. The hospital has been notified. You walk out of here today with 0 debt. Richard watched her process this, saw the emotions play across her face. Relief, anger, confusion, guilt. There's more, he said quietly. She turned back sharply. What? The police cleared your name. Officially. There's no investigation. No questions. It's done. How? I made some calls, explained the situation, made it very clear that you saved my life, and asking what you got out of it was insulting. Naomi's hands clenched at her sides. I didn't ask you to do that either. I know, but you shouldn't have to defend yourself for being decent. She was quiet for a moment. Then, is that everything? No. Of course it's not. Richard pulled out another paper. There's a position available at Riverside Commercial Management, day shift. Office building maintenance supervisor, pays $18 an hour, full benefits, flexible schedule that works around school hours. Naomi stared at the paper like it might bite her. What is this? A job offer. From who? From me. Well, from my company. We own the building. The position is real. We've been needing someone for months. This is charity. No, it's a job. You'll work for it. You'll earn every dollar. The only difference is I made sure the position was offered to you first. Why? Because you lost your last job helping me. This is me making that right. Naomi took the paper with trembling hands. Read it over. 18 an hour. Benefits day shift. And there's childcare available in the building. Free for employees. Lily could come straight there after school until you're done. You thought of everything. I tried. She looked up at him. Why are you doing this? Richard was quiet for a moment. Then, because I spent years thinking kindness was just another form of currency, that people only gave because they wanted something back. You proved me wrong. And He paused. I owe it to myself to not let that be meaningless. This isn't about repayment. No, it's not. It's about... He struggled to find the words. It's about the person I used to be, before I got burned, before I decided everyone had an angle. He met her eyes. You reminded me that I used to believe people could be good, that not everything had to be a transaction. I want to be that person again. This is me trying. Naomi's expression softened, just slightly. I still think this is too much. Maybe. But I also think you've been carrying too much alone for too long. Let someone help, not as a transaction, just as what it should be. She looked down at the job offer again, at the numbers, the benefits, the schedule that would actually let her see her daughter. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. That's not fair. You know I can't say no to this. I need it too badly. Then say yes. Naomi's hands were shaking. She blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. This doesn't make us even. You don't owe me anything. I know. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Richard thought about James Torrance, about the handwritten agreement, about 5 years of believing the worst in people. It's me learning to trust again. That kindness exists without conditions, that some people stay just because it's right. He paused. You taught me that. The least I can do is prove I learned the lesson. Naomi wiped at her eyes quickly. You're making this really hard to say no to. Good, that's the point. A laugh escaped her. Small, surprised, but genuine. Okay, she said finally. Okay, I'll take the job. Yeah, but I'm working for it. I'm not coasting. I'm not taking handouts. I wouldn't expect anything less. She folded the paper carefully, tucking it into her pocket. When she looked up again, her expression was complicated, grateful but wary, relieved but cautious. Thank you, she said quietly. Really, thank you. Don't thank me. You're the one who... I'm going to thank you anyway. Let me have this. Richard nodded. Okay. They stood there for a moment. Two people who'd been strangers 4 days ago, now connected by something neither fully understood. I should get back to Lily, Naomi said finally. Of course. I'll let you go. She turned toward the door, then paused. Mr. Caldwell. Richard, please. Richard. She tested the name. What made you lose faith in people, the thing that happened before? He was quiet. Then, someone I trusted took everything I gave them and disappeared. Proved that trust was just another word for naive. But you're trusting me now. Am I? Or are you just that rare person who doesn't need trust because they've already proven themselves? Naomi shook her head. That's a depressing way to look at the world. It kept me safe for a long time. Did it? Or did it just keep you lonely? The question hit harder than it should have. Richard didn't have an answer. Naomi must have seen something in his face because her expression softened. Maybe that person who hurt you was wrong about more than just you. Maybe they were wrong about what the world is supposed to be. Maybe? I hope you figure it out. She opened the door to Lily's room. And Richard, I really do hope you're okay. Not just physically. She disappeared inside before he could respond. Richard stood in the empty hallway, her words echoing. Maybe they were wrong about what the world is supposed to be. For 5 years, he'd shaped his entire life around James's betrayal, had let it define how he saw people, how he interacted with the world. But Naomi Brooks had stayed at a bus stop in the rain for no reason except that it was right, had sacrificed her own stability for a stranger, had proven that everything he'd believed for 5 years was incomplete. Maybe not everyone was like James. Maybe some people really did help just because they could. Maybe the world wasn't as cynical as he'd needed it to be to feel justified in his walls. Richard pulled out his phone, made a call he should have made years ago. Marcus, it's Richard Caldwell. Yes, I know it's been a while. Listen, I want to reopen the charitable foundation, the one I shut down 3 years ago. But this time, I'm doing it differently. I want to actually work there, meet people, hear their stories, not just write checks from a distance. He talked for 20 minutes, making plans, making commitments, making changes. When he hung up, something felt different, lighter. He'd spent 5 years proving that kindness didn't exist without conditions. Now he'd spend whatever time it took proving himself wrong. On the last bus home, Part 9, the bus that never left 3 months later, Naomi clocked out at 4:30, right on schedule. The office building was quiet at this hour. Most people had gone home already. She gathered her things from the small supervisor's office, still strange to think of it as hers, and headed downstairs. The child care center on the second floor was winding down for the day. She found Lily at a table working on homework with 2 other kids. "Ready to go, baby?" Lily looked up, smiled. "Can we stay 10 more minutes? I'm almost done with math." "Sure, 10 minutes. Naomi sat in one of the parent chairs watching Lily work. Her daughter's breathing had been stable for weeks now. The new insurance through the job meant regular checkups, medication that was always filled on time, no more rationing inhalers. The difference was visible. Lily had more energy, laughed more, worried less. That alone made everything worth it. "All done." Lily closed her workbook triumphantly. "Good job. Let's go home." They walked together to the bus stop. Not the one on Madison and 5th. Naomi avoided that one now. Too many memories. This stop was closer, better lit with a bench that wasn't broken. While they waited, Lily swung her legs, humming something from school. "Mom." "Yeah. Can I ask you something?" "Always." "That night when I was in the hospital, when the police came to talk to you, what did they want?" Naomi had hoped Lily had forgotten about that. "They just had questions about something that happened." "About the man you helped?" "Yeah." "Were you in trouble?" "No, baby. Just questions." Lily was quiet for a moment. "Kids at school say you should never help strangers, that it's dangerous." Naomi chose her words carefully. "It can be. You should always be careful. Always trust your instincts." "But you helped that man." "I did. Even though you didn't know him." "Even though." "Why?" It was the same question everyone had asked. The police, Richard, even herself late at night when she couldn't sleep. "Because someone needed help and I could give it." Naomi looked at her daughter. "That doesn't mean you should talk to strangers or put yourself in danger, but it does mean that when someone needs help and you're able to give it safely, you should consider doing it, even if it costs you something. Sometimes, especially if it costs you something." Lily thought about this. "I'm glad you did it." Yeah, because now you have a better job, and I get to stay after school instead of with Mrs. Chen. And you're home more." "That's not why I did it." "I know, but I'm still glad." The bus pulled up. They climbed on found seats near the back. Naomi let Lily have the window seat. Her daughter pressed her face against the glass, watching the city roll by. Naomi pulled out her phone. A text from Richard board meeting ran late. "Rain check on coffee." She typed back, "No problem. Next week? Definitely." It was strange having Richard Caldwell as something approximating a friend. He still wasn't great at casual conversation, still approached emotions like they were business problems to solve, but he was trying. He'd reopened his charitable foundation 2 months ago, but instead of black tie galas and impersonal donations, he'd started working directly with people, meeting them, learning their stories, actually seeing where the money went. Last week, he'd asked Naomi to join the advisory board, said her perspective was valuable. She'd laughed and said she didn't have time. He'd said he'd work around her schedule. She hadn't said yes yet, but she hadn't said no either. The bus stopped near their apartment. They got off, walked the 2 blocks home. Naomi unlocked the door to their small apartment, still small, still not much, but theirs, and paid for. "Homework first or dinner first?" she asked. "Can we do homework together at the table while you cook?" "Deal." While Naomi started on spaghetti, actual groceries, bought without calculating every dollar, Lily spread out her homework. Math, reading, a worksheet about community helpers. "Mom, what should I write for someone who helps in my community? What are the options?" "Police officer, firefighter, teacher, doctor." "All good choices." Lily chewed on her pencil. "Can I write my mom?" Naomi's throat tightened. "Baby, I'm not sure that counts." "Why not? You help people. You help that man. You help me every day. That's community." "I guess you're right." "Of course I'm right." Lily said it matter-of-factly, then went back to writing. After dinner spaghetti that Lily declared the best ever, even though it was just jarred sauce, they settled on the couch. Movie night. Lily's Choice, some animated thing about talking animals. Halfway through, during a commercial break, Lily said, "Mom, I found something in your drawer." Naomi tensed. "What were you looking for?" "Socks. But I found this." Lily held up a faded bus ticket. The ticket. From that night. The one Naomi had never thrown away. "Why do you keep it?" Lily asked. Naomi took the ticket, turned it over in her hands. The date was still visible. 11:47 p.m. Last bus. "To remember," she said finally. "Remember what?" "A choice I made. A night when I could have gone home, but I stayed instead." "The night you helped that man?" "Yeah." "Are you glad you kept it?" Naomi looked at the ticket, thought about everything that had come after. The job loss, the hospital bills, the fear, the uncertainty, but also this apartment, this job, this moment on the couch with her daughter, not worried about rent or food or whether Lily's inhaler would last. "Yeah," she said softly. "I'm glad. Can I ask you something else?" "Sure." "If you could go back, if you could make a different choice, would you get on the bus?" Naomi thought about it, really thought about it. "No," she said finally. "I don't think I would." "Why not?" "Because I wouldn't want to be the kind of person who walked away, and I wouldn't want you growing up thinking that was okay." Lily nodded, satisfied. "That's what I thought you'd say." She handed the ticket back. Naomi held it for a moment longer, then tucked it back in her pocket. Later, after Lily was in bed, Naomi sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. The apartment was quiet. The bills on the counter were manageable. The job application for Lily's after-school program was filled out and ready to submit. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Richard. "I know you said you'd think about the advisory board position. No pressure, but we're meeting next Tuesday if you want to sit in, just to see what it's about." Naomi smiled, typed back, "Maybe. I'll let you know." She set down the phone and pulled out the bus ticket again, traced the faded date with her finger. Some nights smell like rain and regret. Others smell like the moment you chose to stay. She'd chosen to stay, had paid for it in ways that still ached sometimes. But she'd also learned something about herself that night, something she hadn't fully understood before. That kindness didn't need a reward to be worthwhile, that doing the right thing didn't always make your life easier, but it did make you someone you could be proud of. And maybe, just maybe, it reminded other people that they could be that person too. The ticket went back in its drawer, but Naomi knew she'd look at it again, keep it as a reminder, not of what she'd lost that night, but of what she'd refused to walk away from. And in the end, that made all the difference. 1 year later, the charitable foundation hosted a small gathering. Not a gala, nothing fancy, just the people they'd helped, the volunteers, the staff. Richard stood in the community center watching people mingle. This building hadn't existed a year ago. Now it provided job training, childcare, medical referrals. Real help, not just checks in the mail. Naomi approached with 2 cups of coffee. "You look lost in thought. Just thinking about how different this is." "Different from what?" "From the version of me that wrote checks and called it charity, the one who thought staying detached was safer." "Was it safer?" Richard considered. "Maybe, but it was also emptier." They stood together watching Lily help younger kids with an art project in the corner. The girl had started volunteering at the center a few months ago, said she wanted to help people like her mom did. "She's good at it," Richard observed. "She is." Naomi's voice was soft with pride. "She's better than I was at her age. More confident, less afraid." "You taught her that." "Maybe. Or maybe she just got lucky with what she inherited. Kindness isn't luck, it's choice. Coming from you, that means something." Richard glanced at her. "You know, I reopened contact with James last month." Naomi's eyes widened. "The friend who—" "Yeah, that one. How did that go?" "Terrible, painful, necessary." Richard was quiet for a moment. "He's broke now. In debt. Asked if I could help." "Did you?" "I referred him to the foundation's financial counseling program. Told him we'd help him build a path forward, but he'd have to do the work himself." "That must have been hard." "It was. But I realized I'd been holding on to anger that was hurting me more than him. This isn't forgiveness, but it's letting go. Moving forward. That's growth. I had a good teacher." They watched the party continue. People laughing, sharing stories, building connections. This was what Richard had been trying to recreate for 5 years. The feeling of community, of trust, of believing people could be good without an angle. He'd been looking in all the wrong places, in black tie galas and tax write-offs, in transactional relationships where everyone kept score, when all along it had been here, in a bus stop in the rain, in the choice to stay when leaving would have been easier. "Thank you," he said quietly. Naomi looked at him. "For what?" "For reminding me that the world isn't as cynical as I needed it to be, that some people really do help just because they can. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to wait any longer." Across the room, Lily called out, "Mom, Mr. Caldwell, come see what we made." They walked over together, looked at the mural the kids had created, a bus stop in the rain, stick figures helping each other, words painted in bright colors, "Some people stay." "Do you like it?" Lily asked. Richard looked at Naomi. She was smiling, really smiling, the kind of smile that said despite everything, despite the hard nights and the fear and the cost, it had been worth it. "I love it," he said. "It's perfect." And it was, because some nights you miss the last bus home. Some nights you make choices that cost you everything, and some nights those choices end up saving more than just one person. They save the part of you that still believes people can be good, and maybe, just maybe, they remind someone else that they can be good too. That's worth any price.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.